teach my students in compassion inquiry. One of the
Hi, Dr. Rove.
Hello, how are you?
I am well and all over the place. Thank you so much for bearing with me.
Oh yeah, no, I know that we had this yeah, I don't know why my university has all kinds of firewalls, especially because in this past spring of 2023,
Mhm.
it was very interesting. There were all of these like cyber attacks on different systems, um, the servers and crashed everything. And so it was I think a few campuses in the CSU, including Stan State, and then it was like a police department, but it was like in either in Modesto or Turlock. And I don't know if it was some of the K through 12 schools, but there was a major system outage.
Wow.
So I don't know if they have these like buffed up firewalls now,
Hmm.
but I can't ever, I wasn't able to join the meeting at the link you sent the last time. So, but
Yeah, sometimes I've been able to remove them, but sometimes like the settings revert back and I don't know. So,
mhm.
but I'm glad we're on now. And how are you doing?
Very busy.
Yeah.
But definitely this is my second year chairing, so I just feel like I'm getting a better feel for it, even with all of the challenges.
Awesome. Well, you were one of my first participants, and now like you're one of my last interviews. So I'm wrapping this section up, and I'm glad we could circle back around and get the last bit of this interview finished up. And
All
now I got
right.
my defense date, so I'm just counting down. um, Things are moving right along.
That's huge. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. All right. So I think we left off at resources.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, so I won't ask you to recap because I have that interview already. So I'll just ask you about resources. So, what kind of faculty are teaching these Area F courses and how were they selected?
So, and I'm going to be as succinct as possible. So in terms of resources, I don't know, I want to back up a little bit and say that we were able to actually get two new tenure track lines. And this was back in 2021, 2022. And so when we were approved to tenure track faculty searches as a direct result of AB 1460. So, and also as a result of the law passing and also of the governor allocating funding to the CSUs to um, be able to beef up, right, the faculty and the course offerings for ethnic studies.
Mhm.
And so I think what's interesting, we also with the funding, because we transitioned from a program to a department 50 years after having ethnic studies having been established at Stan State. Specifically, it was a little bit later here. It wasn't established until 1972 at Stan State as a result of student protests. So we also got approval to hire a department coordinator.
Mhm.
And this was huge because when we were a part of, like when I came in 2018, we were a part of a 3-program department. So our previous department was anthropology, geography, and ethnic studies. And what that meant was there was one department coordinator, but they had to coordinate everything for 3 different programs. which the organizational structure to me is interesting. And I don't like it in the sense that it's kind of very rigid in terms of, even though the one department coordinator that was allowed was spread very thin because there were 3 programs in one department.
Mhm.
And because we plan annual ethnic studies events, that's a huge part of how we put our ethnic studies into practice on this campus. We've always needed our own coordinator just for us. Like at this point, we coordinate and we put on 7 major annual events over the course of the academic year. So with those resources, we were approved 2 new tenure track lines and a department coordinator. The challenge, and also like course releases internally within our department, which are huge when faculty are doing additional service, they need to either be compensated financially or through course releases,
Mhm.
and instead of basically doing a lot of unpaid labor.
Right.
And to date, we have never been told how much that funding is that ethnic studies specifically received.
Mm.
The dean, it goes through the college that houses ethnic studies departments, and the dean of our college is extremely shady and unethical and abusive. And a drunk, shows up to public events and meetings drunk. So I've asked and we can't get a straight answer. So we never know. We don't really know what we're working with. We don't know if he's using that funding that was sent and earmarked for ethnic studies by the state legislature and the governor. There's just no transparency. And having said that, we use that money to hire a second Black ethnic studies faculty member with an emphasis in Africana or Pan-African studies, because my emphasis is in US based, right, Black studies. And then we hired a second ethnic studies faculty with an emphasis in Native American / Indigenous studies, whose emphasis is in US based Native American studies, not Latinx Indigenous studies. I mean, that's a whole nother, there's debates in the field with how Native American studies and even US based Black studies have been co-opted or watered down, but by this larger framing of these emphases as Indigenous or Pan-African. But to me, the balance is when you can have 2 faculty members in each of the 4 subfields of ethnic studies. And so to have a complete intact ethnic studies department at base, you need a minimum of 4 faculty, to me, for it to actually constitute a legitimate ethnic studies, whether it's a program or a department. You need at least 1 faculty, all ethnic studies with an emphasis in Black studies. And to me, US based initially, if we're going to just keep it at 4, preferably with an ability, like I can teach Pan-African studies to a degree, Native American, right? Not Indigenous. Not when in Latin America, and in Mexico in particular, the government doesn't even recognize officially indigeneity in the way that the US, right? It's a very different history. So 1 in Black studies, 1 in the subfield of Native American studies, US based preferably, 1 in Asian American Pacific Islander studies, and 1 in Latinx, Chicanx studies, in order for it to actually, right? And so
Absolutely.
We select the faculty based on the specific needs. Like in my case, we already had, me. I was the Black studies faculty member with an emphasis in US based Black studies. So part of the reason we selected the second faculty member in Black studies was because their focus is in Pan-African studies.
Got it.
Right, to balance it out, because ethnic studies within a decolonial framework, in order to address colonization and the legacy of it, first and foremost, we recognize that it was global in scope, right? So Then, because we had the ethnic studies faculty member with an emphasis in indigenous studies, we already had that person. We selected the second faculty member with the emphasis in Native American, US-based Native American studies. So it's very complementary. Now, we have not been able to retain an ethnic studies faculty member with an emphasis in Asian American studies. We've literally gone through two since I came here in 2018 and actually 2019, 2020. We conducted a search for an Asian Americanist with ethnic studies with an emphasis in. They stayed for a year and they left. They got poached by CSU Hayward, the East Bay in Hayward. Then we got approved for another faculty search the following year. And that person stayed for a year and a half. They left a year ago, a year ago. So at the end of the fall semester of 2022. And last year we were approved for another third faculty search for an ethnic studies faculty member with an emphasis in Asian American studies. And that was a battle royale. And unfortunately, it ended up being a failed search because the candidate that we wanted and that we really pushed for, and it involved a lot of fighting and a lot of like playing chess, right? I mean, but ultimately they had not completed their PhD in time, right before for the start date. So then that was a failed search, even though one option could have been that we could have extended a job offer for them to be a lecturer, a full-time lecturer for a year, with that converting to the tenure track line and the tenure track position with the contingency that they complete their PhD. But the dean vetoed that because the dean has the ultimate, say.
Right.
So I'm in the process of, during a very, very precarious year with the second year of the loss of revenue from lower enrollment, not from the state side in terms of the budget, not yet, but from lower student enrollment. Now we're having to fight to get the approval of another tenure track search for an Asian Americanist. So just objectively speaking, we're not a full ethnic studies department because we don't have an Asian Americanist in our department. And when I joined, we were nowhere near a full ethnic studies department. It was me. It was the faculty member with the emphasis in Chicanx Latinx studies. And it was a faculty member whose purported area of expertise, or what they got hired to do, was ethnic studies with an emphasis in indigenous studies. And it's been a disaster. And the whole focus was on Latinx indigeneity. So, but they really do this weird version of very superficial, all lives matter, everyone's indigenous. I mean, I know a lot more about US-based Native American studies than they do, and have taught it ever since, integrated it into my teaching ever since I started teaching in 1993. So when I joined, it was really a small Latinx program with a Black studies faculty added on. And I was very vocal about that. And the argument that's used is that obviously the majority of the students here and in the CSU are Latinx, but ethnic studies is not just about the numbers.
Right.
And so, the first Asian Americanists we had, we would meet, and they were, even though there's a larger Asian American, I mean, all of the student populations are larger than the Black student population in the CSU. Hold on, get down. Hold on a second. My cat is acting a fool.
That's
Come
okay.
here. Come here. What are you doing? Stop. I'm going to close you up. Close him up in the room. He is a mess. So,
My cat can be a handful too.
oh my gosh, he be always finding new stuff to get into. So we would talk about it. And even though there's a larger Asian American student population at Stan State, it was very much, everything was very, very geared towards Latinx students. And that's, I mean,
How do
yeah,
you think that impacted the implementation of like the courses that you guys decided to, sort of earmark for Area F? If you were down, Asian American study person.
great question. So the person who applied for the tenure track position last year is currently lecturing those courses, and they were lecturing them last year as well. And so yeah, so we're just basically treading water at this point and waiting to see, because ultimately the provost is going to has to approve any new tenure track searches. And this is right now where, for example, the cuts that are happening all over the country in higher ed,
Mhm.
which I anticipate this being more and more the case indefinitely, right, moving forward. I mean, with the lower birth rates, because nobody can afford to have kids because they done jacked up everything over here. It's like, well, it's gonna cause the bottom to fall out of everything. I mean, the greed is always just very short-sighted to me. Is very short-sighted. So we're not giving birth to, I mean, if you want to think about it from a political economic perspective, workers, we're super anti-immigrant, but it's actually immigrants that have been the ones who have been providing key numbers in the workforce in the US for like the last 20 to 30 years. Something's got to give. I mean, we're going to end up like Japan, but a lot more violent. So, it's weird. We're engaged in a short-term kind of arrangement where this person who is amazing, who is and unfortunately they're encountering challenges themselves, huge just nightmare experience with their dissertation that is not even based in the US. It's a long story, but it's through University of Netherlands, and they're native Filipinx, and their family moved from the Philippines to Daly City in San Francisco, and they were deported with their family when they were 13. So there's a lot going on over there. It's just, all of the barriers, but we just have a very short-term solution right now. We're waiting to see what we're going to be able to work with when they're have already collected data on what's called low enrollment majors.
Mhm.
So actually, I just got the spreadsheet yesterday because I attend Chair's Council meetings, and it's a really almost surreal because ethnic studies is really protected because of the law, and not just because of the law, because we actually teach, our students can actually relate to us, we actually mentor and advise them. So ever since this has been the case when I was teaching like overwhelmingly all white students at a PWI in Arizona, and it's the case here, my Black Studies classes, my classes fill up. They always do,
Mhm.
even though there's such a small Black student population here.
Right.
So now it's like all of our sections are full, and we offer exponentially more sections, which are obviously distributed, right? We don't have, across the courses, across the areas of the subfields of ethnic studies. So we're in like literally the opposite position of, a faculty, a campus that is a plantation, very much so. And even though it's not a PWI in the terms of the student population, it's a PWI. I mean, it's overwhelmingly white faculty who are out of touch,
Right.
who are afraid of the students, who are really, many of whom, not all, but many of whom are relying on general education and forcing students to making certain courses required in certain areas, like the way these policies get implemented in practice. So they over rely on corralling students into their classes by making them required. Whereas I've never had the luxury of doing that, and I've never had to do that. So it's a really interesting dynamic because the other faculty there are some who are very resentful. And I'm like, we were here for 50 years before we became a department.
Mhm.
We were here for what, 49 years at Sand State or 48 years before AB 1460 was passed. What did you do with your 50 years, boo-boo? You have a 50-year head start on ethnic studies. Don't be looking over here and be mad now.
Yeah, so that kind of connects with my next question. So did other departments outside of ethnic studies advocate for a class to be considered Area F?
Well, we cut that off at the pass because of the battle that ensued after AB 1460 was passed, and the issue with faculty governance and the Senate, the University Education Policy Committee wanting to have control, like they do over other courses, of what goes into Area F. And we said, absolutely not. Ethnic Studies as a department will have control. And as per AB 1460, literally, it's why Shirley Weber wrote the law the way she did. It has to have that ETHS prefix. No non-ethnic studies classes on our campus cannot fulfill Area F. Period. The Ethnic Studies department has sole jurisdiction. I mean, and they can shoot it down, but we're the ones to get to, because like we're in the process of having some upper division courses counted in Area F, so that it's not, because right now it's super imbalanced with all lower division courses. And the other challenge was actually on our campus. The faculty wanted to, and this is coming from the chancellor's office at the time in 2020, trying to throw a Hail Mary pass with that stupid social justice requirement, and the statute, whatever that statute was, statute 5, whatever that statute was. That statute is what created Area F. AB 1460 did not call for a whole new GE area to be created.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was intentional because it made the process a lot more complicated. It made it a lot more contentious. And so, because then you have a whole new area that affects the 120 unit graduation cap, and high unit majors, and oh my God, there's a whole new area. So what they wanted to do on our campus is they wanted us to just push all of the ethnic studies classes into Area F.
Mm.
We said, no, we're not going to ghettoize ethnic studies like that. We always have had ethnic studies classes distributed across different general education areas, and we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to be very strategic and intentional and selective about which courses we decide as a department will go into Area F.
Absolutely. So in terms of outcomes, what does a successful implementation look like?
Oh, wow. I mean, I would say that we definitely to me, we are in the first stages of a successful implementation.
Good.
Number one, first and foremost, we as the Ethnic Studies department, we decide. We have full autonomy in what fulfills the Ethnic Studies graduation requirement, and we do. Number two, we have the faculty with not only who actually have the expertise, who actually are continuous learners, because our field is very dynamic, and who are very holistic in terms of not only being very knowledgeable about their discipline or their subfield, as well as ethnic studies as a whole, but also who are passionate, who really, really nurture and support students and advise students and mentor students, who are active within the university community, as well as the larger communities in the area where we live, because that's a key component of ethnic studies. We serve the communities where we live and where we work.
Mhm.
we are struggling with that. We're
So are
struggling
they-
with that. We have the majority of our faculty are definitely meet that standard, but there are two who don't.
Okay.
And one of them is beyond problematic and unfortunately speaks to a larger challenge with ethnic studies. Once you take this kind of still radical idea or philosophy of education, right? Know thyself, know that, right, their history, all of that.
Mhm.
And you try to institutionalize it within any educational context, which is rooted in white supremacy and just all of the things. Okay, all of the things. Unfortunately, to me, they're not, out of the ethnic studies programs and departments and even colleges that exist, I don't think the majority of them go beyond being ethnic studies in name only.
Mm.
I don't think they do. It's really hard to be within this institutional context and to maintain the true core values and vision of what those student strikers, right, led by the Black Student Union for the first month of the strike. I had the privilege of interviewing a couple of the strikers who were with the BSU at San Francisco State, and Black Panthers who specifically enrolled at San Francisco State so that they were really trying to institutionalize Black studies, but then they had to, they needed some help. So, but anyway, so I would say the majority of our faculty do meet that standard, but not all. And it gets to this larger issue of how does ethnic studies stay in the academe plantation? How are we in it and not of it? How do we not get co-opted? And I mean, it's a version of COINTELPRO. It's it's kind of a systemic, the whole system, right, is just kind of set up to constantly whittle away and erode and undermine the true, right, implementation of what ethnic studies really is. And I would say that and what's to me, what I did not anticipate that is that I consider to be very successful is, what does it really look like to have every single student in the CSU and at Stan State come through our classes, every single one. For me, I will say this is an individual success indicator for me. Now, out of the small part of the student body that is Black, every single Black student now has to come through an ethnic studies, has to take an ethnic studies class. In practice, a lot of them are enrolling in the Black studies classes. I don't have to go seek them out, anymore. I mean, so now I'm like, oh my God, I've got all of these Black students in my Black studies class. And I would be teaching 2 Black studies classes if I weren't sharing. And already it's just, I mean, it's amazing. Like, yeah.
That's a beautiful note to end on. Is there anything else I forgot to ask about? You've definitely nailed all the rest of the questions I had, your
Awesome.
answers, so worked out perfectly. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, actually, now that you're, I would say that another way that I will know that we're successful is that when we actually can create some faculty-led study abroad programs for our students.
Oh, I'd love that.
There's very, very, very little institutional support for it in the CSU. There is, and then I have another like success marker too that we're getting together and brainstorming with other faculty. There's a Black woman faculty member in social work that has created a study abroad program in Ghana. And because the ones that already exist are really cookie cutter and they're generic and right, they're not critical. Like I just had a student who sent me an email wanting to see if a course that they're taking on like Japanese culture would, and I'm like, no, this does not fulfill, this is not, no. And I explained why, I was like, no, we study power, we study this, ethnic studies is not multiculturalism. It's not what it is. I don't know how anyone teaches about culture anyway, as an anthropologist, out of the context of power, right, in college, but anyway, but I know that's what they do. So we want to create our own study-led programs and on the continent of Africa. We're looking into that with the other, I work very, very well with the other Black Studies faculty member. And then also for our Latinx students, we do want to create a study abroad program in Mexico. And another opportunity of what's called this kind of growing area of internationalization of higher ed through COIL, through collaborative, online international learning, which has already been, there've already been a couple of faculty learning communities on our campus for that. I made some connections when I did my Fulbright in South Africa this past summer. And so with the University of Technology in Durban. So it's called UT, but it's the University of Technology in Durban. And so that's lower hanging fruit. So we kind of want that to move forward with that. So kind of this more global, the decolonizing work of our department through providing students opportunities for critical study abroad, learning in more of a global context. And the last indicator that I would say is that for success is connecting with other critical faculty on the campus. And just in creating like a critical collective, but like doing it by building the relationships, which I'm in the process of doing. And again, not confined to faculty of color, because the overwhelming majority of faculty are white. The overwhelming majority of faculty of color are not from the US. Right? They're from China, or they're from South Korea, or they're from, there's more Black faculty from the continent than there are from the US, which has always been my experience in higher ed. So, right. So, but it's like really reaching out and, forming relationships and figuring out how to support each other in, the changing the campus, changing the way things are done, changing the organizational structure. So we are in the process of inviting some new faculty who seem to fit that, right, to our next department meeting. And I would say that the last success, to know that we're really successful, is really being able to continue to support the students in their activism and to really bridge, to bring bring the larger communities into that as well. So that's a more long-term, that's more long-term vision. Yeah.
Really beautiful, and I wish that every campus could adopt those metrics. Yeah, well, thanks so much for your insight and expertise. I wish all my interviewees were as insightful as you.
Thank
all the
you.
campuses. But I'm just gonna deal with what I got.
Well, I mean, I think that, thank you for sharing that. And I'm unusual because I never set out to become an academic. My commitment was to K through 12.
Oh wow.
Like, teaching, coaching teachers, research, social justice and equity, right? School to prison pipeline, dismantling that. And I also did a lot of policy work. I'm a policy wonk. And advocacy, with community grassroots, organizing, and even like local electoral politics. So I think because I've worked in such a range of sectors, and even when I went back to when I started grad school, I was already very unusual because especially once I got to the PhD level, most of my peers went straight through.
Mhm.
They didn't have life experience. They didn't have a range of different kinds of work experiences. And I've always I've observed this for all of the years, right, that I was in grad school and now since then. So I have this configuration of transferable skills that like really just equip me to really thrive and excel and be able to be very effective, especially within ethnic studies and the way that we practice it, right, and the way we envision it at Stan State. And
Mhm.
so, like, I'm a trained facilitator in collective impact. I mean, like, that's one way of putting collective impact. I not only consider myself as a change agent, I am a systems change agent. I like to change systems.
And I
And
like to study the
right,
system.
as an anthropologist, that means here are the big level policies at the 30,000 foot level. How do they actually play out in practice on the ground? How are they being weaponized? How
Mhm.
are they being exploited? Where are the gaps?
Right.
Oh, I love to out policy folks with their own policies. That's how I got, right. I was the one who was on Senate, been on Senate since 2020. That was very intentional as AB 1460 was still making its way through the state legislature. And there were a lot of sharks and all of these white folks who had been in place for literally decades. But what I had on them was that I've been a Black woman by myself in most instances in all of these different institutions and having to navigate just to be able to keep my head above water.
Mhm.
So what I've always noticed when I've like I literally single-handedly took on a very, very, not surprisingly, in Arizona at the university where I started out as a faculty member, it was my pathway into from K through 12 to higher ed. They had an ethnic studies program that was it was awful. It was horrible. It was just horrible. But and I took on the entire steering committee single-handedly in an ambush meeting that I wasn't even told about until 24 hours prior to the meeting, that they were trying to they were going in on the person they had selected to be the director of the program, and she was reduced to tears while I was taking all of them on, because I'm like, this ain't the first or the second or the third time I've been in this rodeo.
Mhm.
So what I have experienced is, and I don't underestimate these folks, but they don't really know how to fight because they have the whole system and they have all of their privilege
Mm.
that they've been able to fall back on.
They're used to everyone being on their side.
They're used to everyone being on their side, or they're used to people just crumbling and bowing down with
Mhm.
the slightest little bit of pressure.
Mm.
Oh, they hate me. And I would just say, y'all don't understand. I grew up in Arkansas, but I grew up in a part of Arkansas that's the northernmost part of the Mississippi Delta. I said, I am a Black woman from the Mississippi Delta. Boo boo. You have never dealt with anyone like me, especially not out here in California.
Right.
But except Shirley Weber.
Mhm.
She was born, she spent her early years in Arkansas, but they had to leave and come out here in the middle of the night. Her story is, you reminded me, I need to send some emails after this because I want to get her to our campus so badly. I mean, she is absolutely just like a mentor from a distance, and doesn't. I got to go to the California State Legislature Education Committee Senate meetings back when she spoke, and she was advocating for AB 1460 with a group of students and meeting up with other faculty from other campuses. And I mean, she is a force of nature. This was before she was elected the first time as the Secretary of State for California. I mean, I was like, oh my, that is who I am aspiring to, you know, in my own way. Like, that's the kind of elder that I'm aspiring to become. But yeah, it's like, that's, so I just, you know, part of it is like who I am as a person, but part of it is I have this really rich range of experiences, and I've done this work all over the country. And really, it's my base. I grew up in ground zero in the US for our ancestors. You know, I mean, I'm rooted in that, in all of that. And so that's meant a lot of different things. And it's also meant a lot of resilience. It's meant a lot of strength. It's meant a lot of transmutation and transformation. And a lot of people that I come across, they're, you know, especially it really in any field, but especially in the academy, it's just like one-dimensional, superficial, playing the game, very neck up. There's not, this system does not even really, it's not conducive. Like when you think about PhD programs or just this whole pipeline of higher ed, it's not conducive to actually developing the kind of scholar activist that ethnic studies needs. Like I encountered that at this trip to South Africa, where it was just horrible. Like the faculty, these were Black folks, faculty from Cal State LA, from Bakersfield, they were horrible. There was a core group of us that got them all the way together. I mean, and now, you know, just add them to the list of enemies and haters. These are Black folks who were acting a fool and actually being the most anti-Black, signing with the Miss Sam, with the Miss Karen, the Karen that was all up in the space trying to hijack the space. Like, why white women always got to try to get up in the space? I don't be seeing white men to the, but they're like, oh, we're so, it was just, I already have submitted my application for sabbatical. If I don't go in the spring of next year, I will go after that. I'm gonna write an article about that experience that I just need to write a book. I really do. I really, between my experiences in Brazil and that experience in South Africa,
a whole trilogy, and just being hijacked.
Being hijacked. So I'll end it, but like, so I just say that to say that, you know, because I'm like, what's really going on here at a systems level? And even with me having all of the different backgrounds and sectors and different sectors and all over the country, it really goes back to how I'm rooted. Right. I mean, it goes back to my upbringing. Like I say, if you grow up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, in the country, there's a built-in humbleness, right? I don't put on airs because I know where I come from, and I'm not removed from that. I'm not removed from that. And so I'm not surprised, you know, it's disappointing, but I'm not surprised. But that's why what we are building at Stan State in our ethnic studies department is really important. It's very different. I wish it weren't special. It is. And it's a lot of work, and, you know, we stay under siege.
I still want to visit though, like as the semester
Do it. You should just let me know. Like I said, I teach in person on Tuesdays. My Black Studies class is 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m.
Okay.
A great time to visit would be like, I mean, obviously you're welcome to visit before then, but the end of the semester when they do their Black social justice activist presentations.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd like to drive in like on a Monday evening, stay overnight, so that way I can
Yeah,
jam and then
yeah,
go to campus and meet you in person in real life.
that would be great. Bucket and I, have a 2-bedroom place. So, and actually I'm staying in my own guest room. And so the main room is for guests now because it's just, yeah.
Say
It's
less.
fine, but I'm a real light sleeper and I have some neighbors who sometimes they can any
I could sleep through anything.
then that's perfect. That's what I'm saying. It's perfect for my guests. So
Hmm.
yeah, you would get the good, the nicer room. But I mean, they're both nice. But yeah, anytime, let me know. It's like a Monday, because I'm gonna be around and I'm actually for the first time in many years, I have been doing so much traveling and I really need to and want to save money. So
Mhm.
even like I'm not traveling for the holidays this year. I have just done so much traveling, which oh poor me, but so I'm gonna stay put.
I'm on the same page. Last year I took 52 flights and I'm just like, I don't want to go anywhere for like a year.
52.
Yeah, I'm insane. I'm insane. Insane.
Aren't there 52 weeks in I mean, no.
Yeah, 56 weeks.
So you almost literally were a flight every week of the year.
Yeah, because
That's
I was commuting. So coming and going,
okay.
basically 2 flights a week. So
2 flights a week. Wow.
if not more. So I don't want to go anywhere, but I will make the driving trip.
Yeah, driving is different. Like I've got a crew in LA now, and I already talked to one of my friends there about possibly um going down for Thanksgiving. But then I'm like, do I really want to do that? I don't know.
And I just came back from LA. I'm like, well, I saw my parents, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Seriously, I mean, it doesn't have we don't have to observe these calendar, holidays.
no,
Yeah,
just whenever you feel like it, you can
whenever
take.
we feel like it.
I mean, that's our privilege too, right? We can take our holiday whenever we feel like we need to take a.
Every day I wake up and I'm just like, that's been a big shift for me because this has been really heavy work, but at the same time, there's so many parts of what I do that I love. And one of them is the incredible flexibility and the autonomy we have with our own schedules. Like it's amazing. Like that I'm doing my consultancy and constantly building on that and my community-based work and um I'm like because of COVID and because students are not enrolling in the fully in-person classes,
Mhm.
right? And our campus is largely a commuter campus. So then I've
Yeah,
been observing some,
like the autonomy too. And I've noticed,
right,
with my student affairs 9 to 5 job, like they've been giving some flexibility because they see, like
yeah,
the work still gets done, no one's angry that, we're more flexible now.
right. As long as the work is getting done. And then the gas prices, I'm seeing some trends that I have never seen before with my students in attending in person. I was like, it's the gas prices, right? And then they have jobs where they don't have the luxury of stay. Like I teach 1 day a week on campus. Now I usually go to campus more than once a week, but I don't have to. Like this week and the rest of the time I work from home. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've needed that. I can't afford the gas
Right.
to pay to commute back and forth 5 days a week. I can't. Not right now.
Yeah. I'm normally on campus 3 days a week.
Mhm.
But yeah, it saved me money. And then I don't have to eat this expensive lunch on campus because I can just make my own food at home, whatever I
Exactly.
got in the cabinet.
Right. That's what I was like. I found it because I had an advising session with a student right before our meeting. And then I was like, oh, let me just make some oatmeal really fast. But yeah, definitely just let me know. Like I'm like I have a conference, I had a book launch talk last week literally, well, was it last Wednesday with the with University of Edinburgh? We did it virtually, obviously. Then I'm doing a roundtable conference talk with National Women's Studies Association, which actually started yesterday, and that's going to be tomorrow afternoon. And I was initially planning to go out in person and realized there's no way because it's in Baltimore.
Oh,
That it's easier to fly to Mexico than it is to go across even midway to the country. So I paid my registration, my conference fees, and I said, look, I'm gonna have to do this. And we were already gonna do it in a hybrid format. I was like, yeah, I need to present online. Come to find out, just about nobody's gonna be there in person from our because they're like, well, first of all, the registration and the membership fees are so expensive, and then we gotta pay to stay in the hotel, or it's like, no, I got to do that online.
hotels, transportation. Yeah, no one has time for all that.
Nobody has time for all that. If I were already on the East Coast,
Right.
it would be different. Like I don't know if there's a Black Studies conference that's happening in March, and it's going to be in San Jose.
Yeah, see, I might drive down for that.
Yeah, I really want to start. Like, I've been mainly doing like ethnic studies and um this National Women's Studies Association, but I'm like, I want to go into the spaces where it's set aside just for us.
Mhm.
And when I started looking into that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could drive to that
Right.
and just go drive and then come back.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. And honestly, I haven't been going to anything that's not paid for by my institution. Like I
Yeah.
haven't been paying anything out of pocket, and
Mhm.
maybe that's something that we can, maybe I can get for them to fund, and I'll take some students.
Yeah. Yeah. If they, I have, access to funds for professional development. It's just that, and I get it, we have to pay literally for everything up front and then it gets reimbursed on the back end. That would be very easy, to do for just like, yeah, like I figured out how I'm gonna get my conference registration and membership fees paid for, and I've already got it all set up in the Concur, right? And so as soon as we finish that roundtable tomorrow, I'm like, boom, submit that baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, give me my money.
Yeah. I mean, I have the company card, but I still have to expense and like submit gotta find
Yeah.
all the receipts that I balled up and stuffed into my pocket.
Oh yeah. Child, I use old school. I used to have an envelope where I would keep all the receipts, and now what I do is I take pictures of them on my phone.
I used to do that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I just take pictures of them because I love Concur. I will say that. I was using Concur before I even came to, when I was working with a big nonprofit, we use Concur. So I was like, oh, I've been working with Concur for 3 years. I know how to work with Concur. So yeah, I will take a picture of that receipt and upload that baby so fast. But like old school, yeah, I used to keep and it depends on what you're doing. Like we had a petty expense, a petty cash account when I was working with a nonprofit, and because so depending on what kind of supplies or whatever we were buying, we would just get the receipts and I would bring them back to the office. And at that point, because this was back, I didn't have the greatest phone. I'm not, but I would just make copies of them, scan it and then boom, upload it, just any kind of way, as long as you can upload it in Concur. And that's how we would do it.
Yeah. So I'll take Monday to do all that because I don't know what I was thinking by not. I mean, Concur has a scanner where you scan it and it's like.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I've been taking pictures and just
yeah, I don't know why.
But it's one of those apps. It's like where you can just it's on the web based or like on the phone where they're like, oh, you can take a picture within the app and boom.
Yeah, I have the app, and so like you can,
okay,
and it's expensed and all that.
Yeah,
but I forgot about it, I guess, before we started having this conversation. It might not even be on my phone anymore.
No, I didn't even know that Concur had an app. That makes for the phone. That makes sense. But like ours it's all through the portal of my university, and while I can do that on the phone.
Okay.
It tends to be complicated, and this is where a lot of the embezzlement
Mhm.
be trying to do it through Concur. So I was like, no, I need to be going over this with a fine tooth comb on my laptop. I need to see everything.
I hear
I
that.
need the visual accessibility to be accessibility. I mean, it's a mess.
Avoiding all accusations.
Child, I know they be staying trying to get me. I was like, I don't. Where's the evidence? You don't have any evidence because I'm not doing anything. I don't have anything to hide.
Mhm.
So whatever. But yeah, just let me know. Yeah,
Okay.
and I will
Well,
send you the recording of this.
thank you. Yeah, October was my busy month, so I'm definitely looking forward to like November and
Yes.
December.
Okay, that works. That works.
Okay.
Our
I'll see
our
you.
last day of class, regular class for the semester is December 15th.
Okay.
So then we don't, yeah, I don't do final exams. I do other kinds of projects. But yeah, that Tuesday and Thursday of that week of December. Now Thursday we meet virtually. So like I said, I love this class so much. And yeah, I would definitely want you to introduce yourself and see if the students have any questions for you. But oh my God, I love this class. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love both of my classes, but the second one is more so the babies because it's the intro to ethnic studies. And
Mhm.
yeah, we have a living and learning community. That's another part. We have a social justice living and learning community
Okay.
with ethnic studies. And so I have worked really closely with housing and have a great relationship with them. And again, when I was doing my master's, um, I didn't get funding through the department, but I got funding as a graduate assistant. So I was a graduate assistant with the Office of Student Life. So I have this whole student life, residential life, like for all of that, I have all of that as well, like
Okay.
experience in higher ed. So
Mm.
that has really, like, what I love about my position now is that I literally am integrating all of the skills that I've acquired in these different roles and also what I love most, right, in terms of the work that I've done in the past. And I'm able to, this is the first position where I've been able to really most fully integrate all of it.
So
Yeah, so it's really, I do, it can be a lot.
yeah, that's actually my next big project in this current role as the director of the Black Unity Center is to get the living learning
Mhm.
communities back and running. And
Yes.
that's what the conference was actually for. It was ICA, um, looking at the Institute for Curricular Approach.
Hmm.
So like really making outcomes and curricular design.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but that's cool. I like the social justice aspect of the four. We were planning to do it sort of by race, because that's what we had before.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll, be like,
It
hey,
makes a difference. It does make a difference. I mean, it does. The other thing is we got off to a fantastic start with our LLC in 2019, 2020.
Mm,
Then COVID hit.
mhm.
And so with all of that, this is the first semester that we're really just now getting back on track. And it's fundamentally changed because now it's looking at a hybrid model so we can't, the way that the LLC was designed before and what we were implementing was fully based on an in-person model, 100%.
Mhm.
And we can't, and I was kind of waiting for the dust to clear and settle because, I mean, during COVID, there weren't even that many students living in housing, right, in the 2021, 2022 year. It's become very, very clear that it's going to be hybrid. Like, not only is the class hybrid in terms of modality, so teach one day face-to-face, one day online in real time, but even the class was set aside 100% for students who were living on campus and had signed up for the LLC. And we don't have enough students back in housing yet to do that. So the class is hybrid in the makeup. So some of the students are in the LLC and some of them aren't.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's like we're just like thinking through, okay, what does this look like? What does this mean in terms of how we're going to move forward with this? And then what's really, really great is all of the collaboration with the housing events and activities that are aligned that correspond with our annual ethnic studies events. So we're going to be doing the calaveras. Actually, this coming Wednesday is our Dia de los Muertos, and so I'll be on campus on Wednesday afternoon, hopefully with some leftover Halloween candy, trying to lure students to, do the calaveras, and I've never done one myself, so I'm gonna.
Andy will do it.
Yeah. I'm telling you. So yeah, I'm gonna. I have some beautiful ones that I inherited from the previous ethnic studies director in the chair's office, and so I'm gonna take a couple of those and kind of use those as models. And I even have a small one here that I put in my place. My little tchotchkes that I get when I go to Mexico, but yeah, so it's really exciting. And yeah, it's just like, because of my background in K through 12, I'm the designated ethnic studies faculty member who I do the LLC.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So I can pick your brain once we really.
Yeah, I would like to pick your brain too. I just know that, every campus is different, and what's really been challenging has been launching it literally for the first year before COVID, right in the midst of the year was cut in half, right, by COVID, and then now 2023, 2024, just now really starting to relaunch it and think through what is this going to look like in a hybrid, right? In a hybrid format, Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I could definitely share my notes with you.
Yeah.
Conference and sort of what we're thinking, and yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, the great thing is when you come to visit my intro to ethnic studies class, that's the class that we have designated for the LLC, this fall intro to ethnic studies, and then we have a contemporary race and ethnic studies class for the spring. So we open up the Tuesdays in person with icebreakers, and but you'll get a chance, you would get a chance to also sit in on the class that is the LLC. There's only one section. We offer several sections of intro to ethnic studies, and mine is the one that's set aside for the LLC.
Okay.
Yeah, so then you would actually be able to give me some ideas, because it's
so much alignment. This is so perfect.
Yeah, lots of alignment. All right, well then I'm gonna let you go now. And I will send you, the recording and the transcript once it's available, and be looking out for whenever you're ready to come visit, just let me know.
All right, sounds good, Dr. Rove.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.